Back in the day, when I started eating chips, I knew that I wasn't going to stop until I finished the whole bag. I had an overeating problem. Today I'm going to share with you how I stopped overeating and how you can too. Hey, it's Eloise from Foster. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about how to build habits to not just lose weight, but to also keep it off for good. Overeating. It sounds like a word that conjures half-empty packets of chips, tubs of ice cream, 17 blocks of chocolate as you lie on the couch regretting what you've done. It's something that I never thought that I personally did. But now when I look back, as a kid and really up until recently, I had an overeating problem. It's a big reason why I always struggled to maintain my weight. And a big reason why I felt like I couldn't maintain my weight without severe restriction and extreme exercise. Maybe you can relate? I was never eating large volumes of food. From the outside, it would never seem like I had a problem with eating, but I was clearly eating more than my body needed. Beyond that, food was my emotional coping strategy. I got to this point where I really just wanted to figure out a way where I could still eat things like chips without feeling compelled to finish the entire bowl, especially when I was in social situations. What I discovered is that many of the foods that we eat are actually manufactured to keep us eating them. It is literally the food manufacturer's job to create food that we can't stop eating. No matter how many times we tell ourselves that we'll just have one bite, we feel powerless to stop eating once we start. If you've ever felt like this, it's not your lack of self-discipline. The food industry designs food with the perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat to make it taste so good that we cannot ignore it. Most of the typical advice that you hear at this point is eliminate your trigger foods, get them out of the house. Most programs and diets that I've personally done in the past have taught this strategy, and it kind of makes logical sense. Stay away from the food that you can't stop eating. As I learnt the hard way, you can't avoid processed food forever. I got all the chips out of my house. I was all good for a while until someone put a bowl of chips on the table and I couldn't stop eating them. Because I never allowed myself to eat chips any other time, it became this big deal, and I thought that this was my last chance to have some chips. I'd end up overeating them. Then I'd feel guilty. And then I'd feel like I can't control myself around chips. This strategy clearly wasn't sustainable. I needed to learn how to eat chips like a normal person, not just dance around the issue and avoid them. I started to realize that if I continued down this road, eating was always going to be a problem for me, and I was always going to fear those foods like chips. But let's be honest, it was never just the chips. I often snacked on many things when I wasn't hungry. When I ate meals, I often ate until the point where I was physically feeling full in my stomach. Once you sit back and you get to that point where it's like, wow, I can't fit another piece of food in, that's when you know that you've overeaten. I knew if overeating was a problem for me, I was always going to struggle with my weight. I also had to look at why I wasn't following my natural hunger cues. I wasn't eating these foods because I was physically hungry, so why was I eating them? I discovered that I had a pattern of eating to feel better. I was eating emotionally. Our brains are clever. They're trying to move us away from some sort of pain and towards some kind of pleasure. And as kids, we learn that eating is a really easy and convenient way to do this. We can grab a snack and all of a sudden we'll feel better when we don't know how to process those crazy emotions that we feel as kids. This feel-good feeling is only ever temporary. It never solves that real problem, because once you stop eating, you still have those feelings to deal with. We start to use food as a coping mechanism. We learn that when we feel uncomfortable, if we grab a snack, we'll feel better even just for a moment. But we never learn how to process our emotions in a healthy and productive way. As a child, I remember coming home from school and really looking forward to just having a snack, usually chips. This helped me to reduce the stress and anxiety that I often felt at school. It helped me to feel comfortable and relaxed. While I'm certain that this served me back when I was a small child, this is not a habit that I want to continue carrying throughout my life. My emotional eating habit was no longer serving me. In order to figure out how I could reduce this coping habit of emotional eating, I discovered something called the habit loop. The habit loop says that when we engage in any behavior, it starts off with a trigger, which then triggers us to behave in a certain way. And then once we've behaved in that way, we get some kind of reward. If that loop keeps going around, eventually it becomes a habit. Then I learned that we can actually hack the habit loop so that it will start working for us rather than against us. In order to do this, I'd need to figure out what my trigger was. When was this happening? I used a simple process of journaling to identify what the triggers were that were leading me to want to eat outside of physical hunger. My main triggers were things like boredom, anxiety, overwhelm, and fatigue. When I was bored, I looked for a snack, for something to do, something to distract me. When I was overwhelmed, I looked for a snack to take a break as an excuse to escape the situation. This often happened when I was unsure of what my next step was, or when I felt like I didn't have enough time to do everything, or just when I thought that I wasn't performing well enough in my job. When I was anxious or tired, I would look for a snack as an easy way to feel comfortable and relaxed. These were the patterns that I was noticing. Great, now what? The first thing I learned was that I could interrupt my automatic habit loop by asking myself a power question. It helped me to just notice what I was doing because most of it was mindless before. I wrote down a number of power questions that could help me stay focused and have me thinking long term rather than searching for that immediate gratification that just didn't serve me. Am I hungry right now? How will I feel about this decision tomorrow? What do I really need right now? What would I do right now if food wasn't available? Can I just wait another 10 minutes? What would the best version of me do in this situation? And what's the worst that would happen if I didn't eat right now? The next step was that I needed to find an alternative behavior that I could insert into the habit loop that would give me that similar reward type feeling. I found two particular behaviors that helped me in these moments. One was stretching and one was meditation. Now, I'm not talking about anything crazy here. Just a few minutes will work. When I felt like I really wanted to eat or grab a snack, but I knew that I wasn't physically hungry, after asking myself those power questions to reset my headspace, I would do just 1 minute of either stretching or meditation. Sometimes that was just me getting up from my chair at my desk and doing a few quick stretches with my desk chair. Other times I would use the Peloton app and put on one of their 5-minute stretching classes. And if I chose meditation, the meditation app I use is called Superhuman, and they have meditations that are as short as 1 minute. I can always do 1 minute, no matter how terrible I feel. These two behaviors worked for me. They're not holy grail behaviors that work for everyone. You've got to find something that's going to work for you in these situations. The behavior you pick has to be really quick, maximum 5 minutes, but preferably less. And it also has to make you feel just as good as eating a snack does. I found that the combination of these behaviors, as well as my power questions, helped me to always question my reasons for eating. I also started coping with my emotions in much more positive ways. I no longer relied on food as the only answer to uncomfortable emotions. These small 1-minute stretching and meditation sessions eventually led me to find journaling as another alternative behavior. Journaling has been a really powerful tool to help me process my emotions in a really healthy way. Now, you might be thinking, if I'm at a friend's place or out at a restaurant, do I just get up and go start stretching? I agree with your thinking that that's not very realistic, and no, I don't do that. By developing the habit of getting aware of my reasons for eating and learning ways of coping with my emotions without food, when I was at home, food in general started losing its power because I didn't need it in order to cope. I no longer felt like I needed to eat an entire bag of chips just to feel satisfied. When I was out, I could still make sure that I was making conscious decisions to eat and not just eating because the food was in front of me. I realized that I could use behaviors like taking deep breaths in between bites and having sips of water while I'm eating, so that I was eating slowly and mindfully and not just mindlessly shoveling food in. Because of those practices that I was doing at home, I started feeling like I was finally in control. I was able to make those choices that I knew I was going to be proud of tomorrow. This helped me start to eat less naturally, especially when I was in social situations. The truth is that you don't need to cut food out completely, and in many cases, cutting out your trigger foods actually makes it worse because you never learn how to eat them in a healthy and moderate way. I really hope that my story can give you a little bit of hope that it is possible to beat your overeating. Trigger foods won't be trigger foods forever. In just doing really simple behaviors like learning new coping behaviors, you can really start to reduce your emotional reliance on food and reduce your overeating habit for good, which will also help you to manage your weight in healthy ways and start naturally eating less. If you liked this video and you found it valuable in any way, don't forget to hit like and hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with all of our new content. If you found this video valuable, you might also like these videos that others have found helpful as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.